Now let's welcome in Hall of Famer and 11-time NBA All-Star Charles Barkley to the 24/7 Sports Series Social Distance. Charles, I'm gracious and appreciative of your time. Thanks for jumping on here.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
We'll get to sports in a second, but I think the topic of racism and social injustice in our country is too important to ignore right now, especially today, especially this week. Our country is really in a heartbreaking place. What is your message and kind of thoughts on what's going on in the country right now?
Well, it's a mix of emotion, anger, pain, sadness, uh, disappointment. Also, in some of the stuff that's happened after Mr. Floyd was killed, it's just a lot of emotion. Evan, I just look at it like this. If I was, and obviously the racial stuff always matters, unfortunately always matters,
Right.
but this to me is just about being a human being. If I was walking down the street and I saw a person with I'm an animal lover, and if I was walking down the street and I saw a guy with his foot on a dog's neck uh, for extended periods of time, anytime, to be honest with you, I would just whip the hell out of that guy.
Right.
I mean, that's the simplest way that I can put it. That video is terrifying. It's frustrating. And, the thing I think is really resonating with people is I think this is the first time we've seen it in action. Normally when you see somebody killed at the hands of the cops, you hear about it after the fact. But this was really painful to watch. A grown man breathing, begging for his life, calling for his mom. And spectators are sitting there saying, hey, the guy can't breathe. I think that's the thing's probably the most powerful and disappointing aspect of it.
For sure. Charles, sports has a way of unifying people, teams, fans. What role do you think sports can play in helping this country move forward and helping it unite and really defeating racism?
Well, listen, I don't know if it can defeat it. I mean, it's been going on for 400 years, so I don't know if you can defeat it, but you can clearly make things better. I really have appreciated the support from just people. I'm not going to even say the white community because that's not a way to phrase anything. But if you wasn't appalled by that video, it's just something wrong with you as a person.
For sure.
But I think we as players, we got a great platform. It's interesting, especially being black. You go back to the movie Do the Right Thing with Spike Lee, and he was talking about the racists. He said, well, how can Michael Jordan be your favorite black basketball player if you don't like black people? How can Michael Jackson be your favorite entertainer if you don't like black people? And he said they're different. So I'm not gonna get on your interview and act like I know what everyday poor black people go through. I mean, that's disingenuous on my part. But what we in the sports world have an obligation to do is, number one, keep trying to make a difference, but also anytime something like this, we can bring great awareness to it. And I think the guys have been amazing. But like I say, man, and it's a tough one because listen, most of these cops out here are amazing people.
Right.
They're amazing people. But I would love to see some cops get on television and say, hey, you know what? There's no way this should ever happen. I mean, I know they got a very difficult job, but to keep your knee on a guy's neck for 8 minutes and 42 seconds when he can't breathe, nobody can justify that.
For sure. It's been encouraging seeing guys like Jaylen Brown and Malcolm Brogdon and Trae Young really be vocal and active in leading these peaceful protests.
Well, first of all, that's a great way you phrased it, peaceful protest. I'm for protesting. I'm not against any form of rioting or looting whatsoever. I think peaceful protest is the way to go. Nobody wins when we start looting and rioting and fighting and throwing things at the cop. Nobody wins in that scenario. I mean, because the message gets lost.
Right.
You have to ask yourself, if you're out here throwing things at the cops and looting, what are you really doing that to enrich yourself to be able to loot stuff, or are you here for Mr. Floyd? So I'm proud of my guys for leading peaceful protest. And this is just a really important time. Like I say, I think the biggest thing with this is the first time we ever seen it like happening. You know, go back to Rodney King. He didn't die when he was getting beat by those cops. But to see a grown man, just somebody on his neck for 842, that was really painful for it's not, like I say, it shouldn't even be painful just for black people. It should be painful for people.
Painful for humanity.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, let's shift to sports, Charles. You were recently involved in the production of The Match. Tiger Woods, Phil Mickelson, Tom Brady, Peyton Manning. What was your favorite part about being a part of that event?
Well, just giving the people at home something to watch. You know, it turned into the most watched golf match in history, which I really appreciate the public supporting it.
Mm-hmm.
But I thought the guys were fantastic, which is the key. I mean, you know, and I knew Peyton was going to be great. I knew Phil was going to be great. I don't know Tom that well, but I thought he was awesome. And Tiger loosened up a little bit. But I thought the banter back and forth between the guys were fabulous. And like I said, that's what made it fun. I mean, the first time we did the match, you know, Phil and Tiger barely talked to each other, so it wasn't a lot of energy and it wasn't exciting at all. But this time they were much better, and it showed. They engaged the public. I mean, you saw how many tweets they were getting from celebrities. I mean, you can imagine how the rest of the internet was blowing up on things like that. But to get all those tweets, you know, Brooks Koepka donating $100,000. You know, JJ was there, Russ was there, Russell Wilson, JJ Watt, A-Rod. I mean, so I really appreciate everybody stepping up and watching.
We even got a little banter between you and Justin Thomas.
You know, Justin was fantastic. He's an awful golf coach because he made me double bogey at 18th hole. But we really had a good time. You know, he's a great player and a great kid. You know, we had a little natural rivalry between Alabama and Auburn.
Right.
Yeah, but it was really important. He was fabulous on the course also. You know, he was very relaxed. You know, it should be fun. I mean, it's just sports. We're not saving the world. But, you know, the guys, and first of all, I got to give all four of the golfers a lot of credit because I don't know if you could see, well, you can't see at home. Man, it was raining cats and dogs.
Right.
I mean, it was really, really, really raining. And even when we finished up, you know, I heard Peyton say one time, I can't see anything. And I'd heard announcers talk about that before, how it looked like it's light. Because of all the lights on the cameras. But, man, it was dark out there.
Really?
But so I give those guys a lot of credit for playing in like I say, a torrential downpour, and also the ability to just, you know, hang in there.
Right. Tom Brady was taking a lot of heat on Twitter. I want you to kind of picture yourself on the course playing against him. How many strokes are you giving him?
Well, you know, Tom, you know, so funny. Tom was amazing. I got to admit, man, because, you know, I was talking to, because you couldn't get on the course unless they took your temperature or you had a secure badge. So there was nobody on the course. So I had went out there that morning for a production meeting, and I was talking to a guy who worked at the course, and he said, yo, man, Tom Brady was out here hitting balls for 7 hours on Saturday, which I'm like, wow, that's awesome. And not only that, he got up Sunday morning and played 18 holes. And when I got there, he was running wind sprints in the parking lot. I was like, whew. I mean, that's why he's the greatest football player ever. To hit balls for 7 hours on Saturday, get up Sunday, play 18, and do his football workout in the parking lot. Because, you know, the match didn't start at 3. It was delayed a little bit after that. But, man, he was dedicated.
If there's another year of this, who would you like to see playing with Tiger and Phil?
Well, I think they should, if they're going to do it again. I'm not sure. Obviously, hopefully we'll have some sports back sooner than later. But, you know, I think, you know, I saw that Sergio and Drew Brees offered to take on the champions. You know, I was asked would Michael Jordan play. You know, it would be great if they had maybe up to 10 teams, a pro and a famous player that would really be good. Like I say, man, we raised $20 million. That's a lot of money.
Yeah, that's a lot.
That's a lot.
You obviously had an illustrious career in the NBA, but you've also built a fantastic career as a broadcaster. You were a part of that event, obviously your show on TNT. What do you think has allowed you to connect so well with the audience on television?
Well, I think they know that I'm not gonna lie. It's so funny. I wish they understood how this whole thing works. I'm never gonna lie to them. I think that's important and significant. And because sometimes when I'm on shows like yours, it's so funny. When I was back in Philadelphia in the '80s, and guys were great friends of mine. We played golf in the morning before they went on the radio in the afternoon. I'm like, "What you gonna talk about today?" And I'm like, "They're like da 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 da." I'm like, "Wait, you believe that?" He says, "No." He said, "But Charles, our job is to get these people to call in and argue for 4 hours." He said, "That's how talk radio works." And it took me a while to realize, like, I never want to be. Like I say, some of these guys are great friends of mine, but they're like, "Dude, the key is get people to call in. You say something that a lot of people are going to agree and disagree with, and they're going to call it. I mean, it's hard to. I guess I don't know. I've never done it. It's hard to fill 4 hours of radio every single day.
Right.
But you have to throw some provocative stuff out there." But one of the reasons I think I've been successful on television, I think the people are like, hey, even if they disagree with me, they know I'm not going to lie.
Right. Do you have a favorite moment of your broadcasting career?
Interesting. Good question. No, not really, because, I will say this, like, I've seen so much great basketball.
Yeah.
I've been doing it for 19 years now. I've seen so much great basketball. I saw the night when LeBron scored 29 out of 30 straight points against the Pistons. I remember the night Klay Thompson went off for like 50 in the clinching game against the Oklahoma City Thunder. I just replayed those games, so those are two closest to my mind. They had us pick out some games that to show, and those were the first two I picked. Yeah, I think those are two. But like I say, man, over 19 years, I mean, it's been a lot of good games.
Yeah.
I remember the night LeBron, when I called him out on the air about, when he first got traded to Miami, he was trying to defer to Dwayne Wade. And I said, yo, man, it's time for you. It's time for you to be the best player. You're the best player, be the best player. Don't worry about your friend.
Right.
And that was the elimination game against the Celtics. And I think he had like 40, 12, and 9. And it was just a awesome work of beauty.
How often coming off the show, if you call a guy out like that, are you getting a text or a phone call from him?
I've had 10 to 20 phone calls from players or agents, which is fine, or coaches.
Yeah.
I don't do my job. I always tell people the funniest story was the great Kobe Bryant one night. Remember the game he wouldn't shoot in the second half? He was like, I called him out after that because he would not. He shot one time in the second half. He was trying to prove a point. He didn't have any help. Mm-hmm. And I was livid to what he tried to do. And I called him out. And when I got off the air, because we get off around 2:30, depending on all the stuff we have to do. And Kobe started texting me for the next 3 hours. And we're going back and forth, and he's calling me every MF, every SOB in the world, and I'm laughing as I get these. And I'm like, yo, man, pick up the phone and call me. No, mofo. I mean, it was awesome. We laughed about it, later when we saw each other.
Right.
But it was hilarious that he would not pick up the phone, and he sends me at least 20 to 25 texts. It was awesome.
Oh, wow. What about covering the NCAA tournament? What have you enjoyed about that process?
Well, let me just say this. Other than the Olympics, the Final Four is the greatest thing I've been to. The Olympics are amazing, but going to the Final Four, especially on that Saturday, is probably the coolest event other than the Olympics I've ever been to in my life. It is so awesome. Now, it's a pain in the ass. There's a lot of work. So starting about January the 1st. So the way I do my schedule is October, November, December. I only look at the NBA. So starting January the 1st, I'm watching 2 or 3 college games a day. Every week we get an itemized report on every conference. Mm-hmm. And so it's really a lot of work. So you just kind of glancing and studying, and I'm watching about the top really 25 to 30 teams. I watch because you can't watch a team one time and learn anything about them. So you got to watch them at least minimum 3. So I'm watching 3 games a day starting January the 1st, and by the time March Madness get there, man, I'm so excited because, you're looking at close to 100 teams throughout the season. And you're so glad when they get to they pick the team. You're like, whew, thank goodness. And then from that point on, you're on the phone. So we get the selection on a Sunday night. So Monday and Tuesday, I really don't worry about those games on Tuesday and Wednesday because we don't cover those. But what I try to do between Monday, really Sunday night and Wednesday, because I don't want to go crazy all day up until Thursday. We're to be on at noon. So I spend all my time calling coaches because, listen, these coaches know about – there's not a player that doesn't not have a friend. Like if I want to learn about Southeast Louisiana, I'll call somebody and say, hey, tell me about this team. I mean, obviously I don't know everything about them, but, they probably won't be around that long anyway. But it's a lot of work.
You were obviously an All-American at Auburn. Your jersey's retired there. Bruce Pearl's done a tremendous job there. You were able to cover them going to the Final Four. What was that like, getting to watch your alma mater make that significant of a run?
Well, listen, first of all, I will say this. I've never felt worse after a loss, even in my own career.
Wow.
As I did when they lost to Virginia. I mean, that was the worst I've ever felt after a game. I almost started crying on television. I was so emotional because, number one, I never in my wildest dream thought Auburn would make it to the Final Four. If we that's the most amazing thing about Bruce. I tell people we're never going to be out-coached. My relationship with Bruce goes back when he was at Tennessee. So I know he's a great X and O, but I always tell people we don't get McDonald's All-American. We get guys who eat at McDonald's. So but he's changed the culture. Now we're getting better players, but never in my wildest dream. Especially when you go back and look at that. So you see, so we get the list. We get it about 10 minutes before CBS.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm kind of like, we're just sitting around talking for 10 minutes, me, Clark, Kenny, and the guys.
You're saying the bracket, right?
Yes, the bracket. We get it about 10 minutes before it goes on television. And I'm like, oh, jeez, we got Kansas, Kentucky, and North Carolina. And I'm like, okay. And actually, Bryce Brown called me out on it. And I said, Bryce, this is on live TV. I said, Bryce, first of all, nobody expected y'all to get to the beat Kansas, Kentucky, and North Carolina in a row. And it was really awesome. It was really awesome. It was one of the coolest experiences of my life. Because like I say, I'm not going to sit here and lie to you. And I told Bruce, I never expected Auburn to get to the Final Four.
Right.
Especially when I saw Kansas, North Carolina, and Kentucky. I mean, that's what really – that's why, number one, it's the greatest season in Auburn basketball history. Number one, getting to the Final Four. But to beat Kansas, North Carolina, back to back, and then you're like, okay. Then you beat Kentucky. I'm like, that's incredible.
Right. With Bruce, you mentioned the skill development part. You mentioned his X's and O's. You mentioned the culture.
Well, listen to me. Let me just stop you. Like, I don't – he changed the culture. But let me tell you something from an X and O standpoint. So let me tell you something about college basketball that's interesting. A lot of these guys can't coach dead. They can't coach a lick. So, when I'm looking at some of these teams, okay, so I'm sitting here. So I was using this analogy. So in the NBA, let's take a pick and roll.
Yeah.
We're going to play it. We're going to have four options. We're going to go over, under, we're going to hedge, or we're going to double team. That's four options. And the good coaches like, okay, that's not working. Go to plan B. Okay, that's not working. Go to plan C and D. I'm watching college basketball. These dudes run the same play. Let's say they run the play 5 times. They score 4 and get a good shot the 5th time. And I'm saying, and me and Kenny, like, they're going to make a change, right? They're not going to play that play the exact same way every time.
Right.
And that's probably been the most interesting thing. I never worry about that with Bruce. I never worry about that. that kid, that coach at Wichita State, Izzo, the kid who's the coach at UCLA right now, Mick Cronin. Like, I'm sitting there like, these dudes can coach, man. I'm not, like, obviously, Krzyzewski and Roy Williams, guys like that. But I'm talking about some of these coaches, man, they really good, and some of these coaches are really bad. I'm like, yo, man, can you please change this play? Because I'm sick of seeing them score every single play. Because, first of all, a good coach is going to, like, make them stop us.
Right.
That's what I'd run the same play every time if they're going to give me a good shot or I'm going to score or get a good shot. But I'm sitting there watching some of these coaches. I'm like, yo, man, are you going to make a change? I mean, Ken are looking at each other. Come on, man. You're going to make a change, right? And we just started laughing. And Clark, who is a basketball savant genius, he's like, guys, these guys aren't like the NBA. Why do y'all keep looking at them? I said, Clark, dude, that's just good coaching. If something's not working, you change it.
Right.
And he always says, he says, yo, man, these are not NBA coaches. And so that's the one thing I have to be really careful. I won't say this. I'm telling you, but I would never say it on television because I don't even talk bad about college players. Like when I see – we had a game a few years ago. One team choked so bad. They had like an 8-point lead with 45 seconds to go and lost. They threw it away. They threw like 4 of the worst passes. And so we go and I was like, yo, man, I cannot lie to a player. This is one of the worst choke jobs I have ever seen in my life. I said, I can't lie to the public. They just seen this team right here have an 8-point lead with 40 seconds to go, and they threw 4 of the worst passes I've ever seen in my life. I'm not going to get on here and say the other team played well. That was just a choke job. And Clark just started laughing. I said, come on, man, that was a choke job. He said, you're right.
I know you mentioned a bunch, but is there a particular college coach or a couple that you really respect in terms of not just adjustments, but just the way they built programs and the guys that you've covered in the NCAA tournament that you've been impressed with?
Well, listen, I hate to be a homer, but what Bruce Pearl has done at Auburn, first of all, you know what really bothered me? They didn't get a chance to – because this year, for him to lose his 3 best players with the leadership and the guy who's in the NBA, to come back and have another good year is really incredible. And I called every coach on the team and said, hey, man, I know it's not going to ever be shown. I want to tell you I really appreciate what y'all accomplished this year. It's not going to be seen or heard anywhere. But I wanted them to know, man, damn, well, last year was a crazy time, but you had 2 All-America guards and a #1 draft pick. So that was it. Like, okay. But they come back this year, they were in the top 20 all year.
Right.
And they would have been, a 4 or 5 seed. And then this year, there was no great team. No. There was no great team at all. It would have been interesting. This is to wish I could have saw.
It was going to be wide open.
It was going to be wide open. And then let me tell you something. You know how important coaching would have been? Coaching would have been incredible because if you don't have the best team and you just can go out there and come up with a strategy, I trust Bruce. I trust Izzo. I told you, my man Greg Marshall, Mick Cronin, the kid down in Florida is a hell of a coach, Coach White.
Mike White.
John Calipari is a hell of a coach. He always has a lot of talent, but he's a hell of an X&O guy. And obviously, Coach K is a hell of a coach.
Yeah, for sure. If I don't know how closely you follow recruiting, Charles, but Auburn's got a tremendous point guard headed their way, Sharif Cooper. They've got a top 10 recruiting class coming in, so I think you're going to like those guys. Yeah,
the only problem with freshmen, they're not sophomores. So,
right.
You have to always temper expectations.
Sure.
We got a great recruiting class. I'm excited about it. But, man, John Thompson, he says 2 things. Potential get coaches fired, and the best thing about a freshman, he's going to be a sophomore.
For sure.
So you have – and like I say, now you have to also worry, some of these kids, like, they're not even thinking about college basketball. They're just trying to get through the season because they think they're good enough to go pro. So that's a lot of unanswered questions when you're talking about freshmen. Are they going to be there in the moment, or are they just going to be like, hey, I'm just here for 3 or 4 months. I'm not going to kill myself. I'm not going to buy into what the coach is saying. So there's a lot of things you have to worry about in this era that you didn't have to worry about in my era.
Yeah, no question. It's also a lot different too. When you were coming up, when I was doing some research for this interview, I didn't realize that you didn't make varsity in high school until you were a senior.
Yeah, Evan, I grew from 5'10" to 6'5" in 1 year.
Wow.
That's one of the reasons, people talk to me, they're like, because I didn't get any letters from big time schools. Um, so I actually never got a letter until I was a senior in high school.
Wow.
So, but, the dribbling ability really helped me a lot. Trying to, when it came to playing against guys who were 3, 4, 5 inches taller than me. But yeah, until I went from 5'10" to 6'5", I was just another guy.
Yeah, I evaluated Anthony Davis when he was in high school, and he had a 8, 9 inch growth spurt from junior to senior year. It sounds like a similar deal. Before I let you go, Charles, I wanted to hit on the NBA real briefly. It seems like there's a lot of momentum on the league getting restarted. What's kind of your take on it, and how confident are you that this deal does restart?
Well, they're going to restart. I'm positive of that. I know they're trying to work out a logistical nightmare, a health nightmare. I mean, Evan, I just don't know. I'm not going to lie to you. I don't know if it's worth it, because my concern would be one of my players getting sick,
Right.
them getting a wife or a girlfriend sick, and God forbid, one of their kids. So I'm concerned about that, but they're going to play. I'm 100% sure about that. It's probably going to be in Florida. I know they were toying with the idea of Vegas for the West and Florida for the East, but it looks like it's going to be 100% in Florida. They haven't made a decision on the teams yet.
Right.
Which is going to be a really interesting thing, though. They tried it because the bad teams don't want to finish the regular season,
Of course.
and the teams that are close, they want to play. They want to play in tournament. So it's a lot of things they got to finalize, but we going to play.
Do you think
for
that,
sure.
assuming we do play like you say we are, do you think the champion has an asterisk by their name this year?
Well, that's a loaded question. Only if Giannis, LeBron, Anthony Davis, Kawhi Leonard, Paul George. Because my thing, and I've said it all along, if one of these guys get the virus, they're gonna. If Giannis gets the virus, Milwaukee gonna lose it. Like, first of all, do you sequester quarantine the whole team or one guy?
Right.
That's been my biggest concern. I'm like, wait, if one guy on the team get it, you have to quarantine the whole team, right? And you can't stop the playoffs in the middle. And like I say, I worry about the maids coming in out of the hotel. I worry about room service. So
right.
if everybody's healthy, I don't believe there'll be an asterisk. But let's say in an awful world, Giannis, LeBron, Anthony, Kawhi, Paul George, Harden, Russell, and God forbid the Sacramento Kings play the New York Knicks for the championship. I don't think they got an asterisk big enough for that scenario. And it's like, Kenny, who's a dumbass, who I love Kenny. Kenny had the idea. I love Kenny. I'm just messing with him. I hope he gets a clip of this. He wanted to do a March Madness format. And I says, wait, you really want to see the Sacramento Kings play the Knicks for the World Championship? And he's like, that'd be fair to everybody. I said, no, it wouldn't.
Yeah.
I said, no, it wouldn't be fair. I said, so, Evan, it's going to be interesting how they do this. Man, this coronavirus, and obviously the death of Mr. Floyd are a big deal. But this coronavirus, man, it can affect other people in your family.
Mm-hmm.
Like I say, I would hate to see a wife or a girlfriend or somebody's kid get sick. Carl Anthony Towns just lost his mom to the coronavirus. I mean, it's just a scary thing.
Yeah.
But you know what? There's so much money at stake. We're going to play.
Yeah. Well, there's certainly a lot to sift through. Charles, again, I'm really appreciative of your time. I really appreciate you joining me. Thank you.